Okay, so now I've completed all of my rows for the basket weave stitch. You'll see that we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panels. So that's how yours should look. So this is either going to be the front or the back of your work, it depends, but the whole point is it's supposed to be reversible. Okay, so the last thing we need to do now is cast off, or what you might read that as is bind off. So what you need to do is you're going to keep your yarn at the front of your work like you did with the knit stitch, but what you're going to do is you're going to knit 2 stitches. So watch, we're going to knit 1, and it does say to do so loosely, so you're going to cast off loosely. So I'm not going to tie it really tight, pull it really tight like I usually do. I'm just going to make it secure. So you're going to knit 1, knit 2. So when you're binding off or casting off, you only ever do 2 stitches at a time, and then you're going to put your left needle into the first stitch like so, just right through it, right underneath it, and you're going to pull it over the first one and off the needle. So I'm going to keep going, so it's always 2 at a time. I have to remember that it is a loose casting off. Doesn't feel too loose at the moment, but I'll just adjust my gauge. So as you're casting off, you're going to get this nice kind of, it almost looks like a knit stitch, but instead of it being flat like this, it's going to be kind of raised. There are other ways to cast off, so I know that if you happen to be doing a 1x1 or any kind of rib stitch, you'd have to cast off in the same way, but the pattern doesn't say whether or not you need to do any of that. But considering we basically ended on knit and purl stitches, just the normal casting off is probably the best way to go about doing it. Okay, so we're going to knit our final stitch. So we're back to our 2 stitches, and we're going to bring this one over, just like we have been doing. It's not as loose as it could be. There you go. And then we're left with 1 stitch. Now there are 2 ways to basically fix this. Oh, sorry. And that is either to, well, basically you still need to pull this up. So you can either cut it now, or you can cut off with a really long tail that you can actually stitch, use to sew up your sides. It's probably better to use the long one, but I haven't been using that, and I'm going to show you why. So I'm just going to cut this as it is. So you just want to, so if I pull this back down, and if you go back to how your stitch was on your needle, you just pull that up. So this is the long bit. I want to pull that a bit more, and I'm going to cut this off. And then I just pulled out the long bit, so this is what we're going to be weaving into our cushion. Okay, so what I have been doing instead, because what I like is I have, sometimes I have bits at the end, and sometimes bits at the top, like here, and don't quite have it here. But the reason why I didn't leave a really long tail to weave in is that I sometimes like to tie it at the top. I don't quite have that here, so I'm going to show you what I mean on this side. So for now, I'm just going to You can just eyeball how much you need, really. If you go for the length of your work, but you add like an extra half, actually if you double the length of your work, then that's fine. The more the merrier. So I'm going to cut this twice, so I've got them for both sides. Okay, so I've got my 2 pieces here. I'm just going to pop one over here, secure it under my bag, and you will need I like to call this a darning needle. I've got a few. I got one from Hobby, which is really nice because it's metal and it's curved, but basically darning needles usually have like a relatively blunt edge compared to your normal sewing needles. So I'm just going to twist the end of my yarn and wiggle it through. There are many ways to do that, but this way is relatively straightforward and doesn't really bother me much. Okay, so I want to leave a bit there. So this is the fun part, the stitching. So what we're going to do is, it's very tricky, but since the majority of stitches we have are actually stockinette, we're basically going to do the vertical stitch where you're basically stitching upwards. So the first thing I'm going to do is flip it again over like this, and I'm going to find the first stitch of both sides. So we cast it off on this edge, and being a cushion, we're going to sew up the sides. So the first side and the second side, and we're going to leave the bottom bit where we cast it off and we cast it on, that's going to be open where your cushion can go. Okay, so first stitch, gonna wiggle this through that stitch and find my first one here, which is this one. So this isn't really following the stitching up pattern per se, it's just to basically keep the edges as lined up as possible. Okay, so with this one, I personally find it easier and more comfortable to stitch in the second stitch. However, I found when I did that, we've got this thick border that I don't really like, so I haven't used the first stitch in, well, too often, so this is going to be quite a new experience for both of us. So the aim is you start on one side, go to the other, and it's almost like a zigzag. So we started through the blue stitch, went through the yellow stitch, and now we're going to go through another blue stitch. So for this pattern, so for the knitted pattern, what you want to find, so the knitted pattern and the stockinette side, what you want to find is like a bar that's in the middle. So this is literally just a hole, and then we've got what looks to be a bar here. There are 2 bars really, but you want the one that's actually underneath rather than sitting on top like this. And you are literally just, okay, sorry, there was an ant, of course, being nature. Okay, so we're going to go behind that stitch and up, and we're going to pull. But when we pull, we're going to hold the bottom in place just to make sure it doesn't come out. And then you're going to go across to these stitches here, and you're going to find the same one. It is a bit of a struggle, to be honest. There we go, this one's at the back, so I'm going to take my needle, I'm going to go behind that one, so this bar here, I'm going to go behind it and then come up and pull some more, and then I'm going to do the same for the blue side. I really should adjust my camera a bit more. There we go. For me, it's actually easier to feel my way through these stitches. I can't really describe it any other way other than feeling pretty much helps me, except for now. Okay, right, so there's one here, a bit tricky to see. There you go. Let me see if I can adjust the camera because this isn't really helping. Okay, I think that's probably a bit better. Right, and then we have our final. Okay, got a little friend. Can you like, thank you. Okay, so we don't have any more of those middle stitches, so instead we are going to go through this thick one right here instead. It gives it quite a nice pattern, but it also saves you having to go closer into your work, which you don't want to do. And then same thing here, you need to find that bar at the back. Here we go. and then just put your needle behind that. So I'm just going to finish this panel so you can see how your stitching should be, and then I'm going to go and do the other side, and we're going to see how this ends up. So go back to blue, and you want to make sure you get the one on the edge. You don't want to go to the middle because it's going to make your stitching up really messy, and that's not going to be very nice to look at. Behind. Next one is here. Okay, when you can't see any more, so for this one for example, I can't see any more of the wrong side, the purl stitches, so I'm going to go back to the vertical stitch from the knit one, and then find my matching one over here, which is here. So what I like to do is when I'm stitching up, I like to pass my hand underneath and give it a pull just to make sure you can't actually see your hand, because I don't really like knitwear that has holes in it. It makes me sad. So this is coming out pretty good, and I'm going to keep on going until I get to the top, and then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay, so now I've stitched my final lot. So this is what I was talking about, why I like to just make my own length of yarn, because I just like to tie this up. I'm just going to tie it loosely just to keep them together. Ignore the noise in the background, that's just my psychotic cat running around the garden. And then I will just weave this into my pattern with a crochet hook later on. So now I'm just going to turn my pattern around. Actually, this way's better. Whichever way is comfortable for you, but I prefer to start on the right side like this. And then I'm going to do exactly the same on this side that I did with the other side panel. And then I'll get back to you with what the end product will look like. Okay, so I've just stitched up my last stitch, and I just managed to find a little loose stitch at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to thread my needle through that stitch, so I've got that extra security. I'm going to remove my needle like that, and then I will take my crochet hook and put this tail, much like the other ones, on the inside of my work, and then just weave in there. Okay, here we go. So that is basically your cushion cover. It will look much better once the ends have been put in, except I don't have my crochet hooks right now, and in true Blue Peter style and Art Attack fashion, let me show you one that I prepared earlier. Okay, so here's one I prepared earlier with essence of apple blossoms from our tree, so I'm just going to move this off. So like I said, this can either be the front side of your cushion, or alternatively that can be the front side of your cushion. Now that's not to say that the wrong side, so there we go, the purl stitch can't be the outside of your cushion. By all means, it's up to you. This is where I like to think of this cushion cover as reversible, because you've got two different patterns on the front and the back, and two different colors. You've almost got three different patterns. If you want this to be on that side, then you can just turn this inside out. Okay, some of these pieces haven't been woven in yet, but I can show you how it looks on our other one. There we go. So the style is to have this bit on the outside. However, if you want, like I said, the reversible nature, you can turn your cushion cover inside out, so you've still got your basket weaving stitch, the same color as it should be, and then you also have that here. So this is one that we did just do, so as far as this goes, I can literally just snip it, and then you can still have that as your outside. The only reason I probably wouldn't recommend that though is because of the stitch that we've done. This is clearly on the inside, so this the exposed seam is on the outside. I know that with the new fashion trends right now, exposed seams are in, so if you don't really care about having this on the outside, by all means have that exposed and rock it as you see fit. But these are our 2 cushion covers using the Stitch and Story Homestead yarn. There we go, so you can get a better look. And let's just throw some blossom here. Good blossom petals. There we are. So thank you for tuning in, and you will see some other colours on my Instagram page. If you haven't followed me on my Instagram handles, anything knitting related, you can find at Bitty Stars Boutique, and I'll also put that handle in the description box. I've made quite a few of these. I like the colour block idea, having them reversible. It's really fun to play with and really nice to look at. But I've also got plain colours as well. The pattern that Stitch and Story actually gives you is for a 40 by 40 centimeter cushion cover, except when I first did that it looks really rectangular. So based on what I did do with my gauge, I just looked at what actually made it square, and that was actually by and the square that I liked was by casting on 20 stitches and then having 5 of these basket weave panels, and of course the 32 stitches for the stockinette stitch. Okay, so it's up to you. You can either use 2 colours like I did, it makes it really fun, and also kind of, well, for me it actually highlights your pattern a lot more as well. Alternatively, if you want, you can stick to 1 colour. I've also done that as well, but I think that the multicolour is a lot more fun. So thank you for tuning in. If you haven't liked, commented or subscribed to my channel, please do so now to stay in the loop, and stay tuned for any other videos I do of the Make a Something segment with me. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Bye.